And I met Sister Jayanti a few years ago, and really was taken up by what she stood for, the values she had, what she was trying to do. And Sister Jayanti is the additional head of the Brahma Kumaris. It's the largest spiritual organization run by women. The largest spiritual organization run by women. And she's here at COP28 to be part of an interfaith movement to bring up climate change and climate action. So who better to represent India and the diaspora than Sister Jayanti? So please welcome her.
Om Shanti, a greeting of peace to my sisters and brothers. And it's wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you for the invitation to join you and give precious time to the spiritual element. And I'm not surprised that an organization like Indiaspora is making time for this, because India, of course, is the birthplace of spirituality. And perhaps, arguably, our greatest export to the world is yoga. Is there a country in the world that doesn't know the word yoga? They might not understand its spiritual essence, but they know the word. And I've never heard it translated into any other word, whether it's Spanish or Russian or Japanese. The word yoga stays yoga. So definitely India has a major contribution to the world, apart from all the other historical achievements that you probably know about. But I think India also has the answer to this particular issue that the world is facing at the present time. When we started working with UN as an NGO in 1982, there was no mention of climate change. Then in 2009 was the first time I attended Copenhagen, and at that time it was called Hope in Hagen. As we were coming off the airplane, there were big, big posters about the hopes that people had. By the end of that particular session of climate change conference, all hopes had crashed, really, literally. And there were horrible scenes of police putting people in winter, it was December, and people being pinned down to the ground on cages because there were so many demonstrations, because nothing of substance was coming out. So we've come a long way from that, and Brother Shiv explained the figures, but I want to add something to that little statement about 100,000 plus people. Do you know which is the largest contingent that has joined this particular COP? Oil, gas industry, and the banking sector. Are you surprised? We're sitting in Dubai. I wasn't surprised when I read this. And in fact, it's a trend I've been seeing since Glasgow. In Glasgow, there were 500 plus people from oil and business and oil and gas industry. The largest next figure of contingents was from Brazil, which was 400 plus, but the oil industry was 550 plus. Egypt was even more, and this year the figure for just the oil industry is over 1,400. Over 1,400. And you wonder what's going on in Dubai COP28. The figures speak for themselves. But I won't get into the political debate of whether we should phase out fossil fuels or whether we should not mention that word. It's a dirty word for some people, phasing it out. But that's quite apart from my main message at COP. Since 2009, we've had one very specific message, and yes, there's lots of additions that one can give, but the one main message is what is needed is a change of mindset, a change of awareness, a change of consciousness. And only then are we going to be able to deal with the biggest challenge that has faced humanity since the dawn of civilization. It's not the nuclear bomb that is the biggest threat, it is human consciousness. And of course that created the nuclear bomb and all the repercussions of that. And so, is it difficult? I don't think so, especially from those who have a connection through generations with India, because India is the birthplace of the experiments of consciousness, being able to transform consciousness to the highest level possible, to be able to evolve consciousness to the state that it needs to be in. And so we have a history and ancestry that helps us with all of this. I came to Brahma Kumaris as a child through my parents and grandparents, so I was very fortunate. But I grew up in London, where I still live, and I came to the Brahma Kumaris on a conscious level myself when I spent some time in India at the end of the 60s getting to know my roots, because having been away since being a child and visiting as a tourist, I didn't really know what India had to offer. And I decided I'd explore what the Brahma Kumaris were saying. And from that time on, I have been with the Brahma Kumaris full time. And when we started looking at the subject of the environment, this was in the 80s, and we were part of the evolution of the Earth Charter. Some of you might have heard of it, maybe not. But this was a declaration by NGOs at the UN that stated that human beings had a responsibility towards nature. And if you think about the things you heard from your parents, grandparents about their relationship with nature in earlier times, you will know that nature is always considered sacred. And in fact, the beautiful thing is that it's not only true for India. All the traditions of the world, when you explore their spiritual roots, then you'll see that each and every single tradition has spoken about our relationship with nature as being one of being stewards. India takes it a bit further and says we are part of nature, not that we simply have to care for nature, but we are part of the interconnectedness of life and the web of life, and whatever happens to one part of the web is going to impact the rest of the web also. And in essence, our contribution at COP has been, from the moment that our consciousness became locked up in materialism, just the awareness of the physical form, and we lost contact with the spiritual essence of the human being and the spiritual identity of the human being. From that time on, we were consumed by consumerism. We don't consume, we're being consumed. And so there's materialism, there's consumerism, and all of this has become absolutely rampant from the 20th century onwards. It was there before, but from the 20th century onwards, the conquest of nature has been one of the goals of people, rather than either being stewards of nature or having that awareness that we're part of nature itself and this planet. And so when I change my consciousness to the awareness of who I truly am, that inner being, that spiritual being, the light that I am, the soul, when I look out to the world, not just through these two eyes, but through the third eye of wisdom, the inner eye, then I see the world very differently. Then I see everyone here in this room as my family, but in fact it extends out to the whole planet. During G20, one of the big statements was one world, one family, one planet. And of course, it goes back down through millennia to the concept of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, one family. And so how do I see that one family? I don't see it with these two eyes. I see it with the inner eye of consciousness, of awareness. When I see the world as my family, my attitude to what's happening in the global south, whether I'm from the global north or elsewhere, changes considerably. And I'm able to reach out and support, cooperate, and collaborate. But it goes further. In India, we have the tradition of not just seeing humans as our family, but also all species, all forms of life, as also being sacred. And beyond that, the very elements also as being sacred. And so it's not nonsense to bow down to the sun. The sun is the Devta, Dene Vala, that which gives. And so yes, in all humility, I acknowledge that I'm the recipient of so much that's coming from all forms of nature and life. And so nature has served us with abundance for millennia. And in return, there was a time when we were grateful, when we gave thanks, but that happens maybe now just once a year, if at all. And instead of gratitude and thankfulness and appreciation, we've exploited nature, we have abused nature, we have aggressed nature. We didn't see a tree as having a life of its own. We saw it as rupees, pounds, and pence, and dollars. We saw it as an opportunity for income. King Charles said something very interesting in his opening address at Dubai. He said, "We don't own the earth, we don't own the world, but it's an opportunity for us to be here and be part of human life." So where we've considered nature as something that belongs to us, and we've cut it up into pieces and divided it into many, many little pieces, it's been a problem. But how to change this is through the change of consciousness and awareness. And in the awareness of the inner being, what I find is that I'm connected with my own inner truth and the qualities of peace, of love, of joy, of purity. In that awareness, I don't need to be taking from people or from nature, but I connect with the one above and take from above. And in that case, I'm then able to give something in return to people and other species and nature. And so it's a time to reflect on what we've done to our home and to people, but also to go on an inner journey and discover the treasures that every single human being has within themselves. This isn't the domain of a handful of spiritual people. We are all spiritual beings, truly. And so in that awareness, when we access those inner treasures, our whole attitude shifts and changes. Then it's not 1% or 10% of the earth that hold on to things, but it's something, all resources to be shared with many, many others. And so I know that this forum has been created to be able to share, educate, to be able to give. And I know that once I actually spend just a few minutes in silence, going inside, I become aware of this connection of the inner and the outer. And when I come to that awareness, trying to do things on the outer level is going to take not just a lifetime, but it's actually never going to happen. When I change things inside, magic happens, and we come together as a human family, and we're able to serve the planet together to create a better future for everyone, not leaving anyone behind. I'd like to request just one more minute in which we take that moment to go into silence, and I'll just share a few thoughts to guide us there. For a moment, I leave the world outside where it belongs and go on that inner journey. I look at my thoughts, and simply watching my thoughts slows down the speed, and I go even deeper within and come to the core of my being and experience the peace that lies within. As we sit together, experiencing peace, the power of peace multiplies, and the vibrations of peace reach out beyond these walls, beyond the city, to the human family, to all forms of life and the elements of nature. Together, we create, with help from above, a world of peace. Thank you. Om Shanti, and all good wishes for the success of your endeavors.